Young rancher offered $5 million for his horse, but he refuses, and the reason. Ethan Miller stared intently at the check the man in the suit held out to him. $5 million, an amount that would completely change his life and his family's. "I can't sell Thunder," said the 13-year-old boy, his voice trembling as he stroked the neck of the brown horse. Richard Montgomery adjusted his tie, clearly surprised by the refusal. As one of the biggest horse breeders in rural New York, he wasn't used to hearing no, especially from a boy who lived on a modest ranch in Pleasant Creek, Kentucky. "Son, do you understand what $5 million means?" Richard insisted, waving the check. "Your family would never struggle again. You could buy a new ranch, live comfortably." Ethan hugged Thunder's neck tighter. The horse, as if understanding the situation, lowered his head and nuzzled the boy's shoulder. The golden light of dusk illuminated the scene, casting long shadows over the dry pasture. "You don't understand," Ethan began, but his voice faltered. How could he explain to this wealthy man that Thunder wasn't just a horse? It all started 3 years earlier, when Ethan was just 10. His father, Robert Miller, worked as a ranch hand on the Anderson property, one of the largest in the area. The family lived in a simple house at the back of the ranch, and Ethan grew up among the animals, learning early how to care for cattle and horses. It was on a cold July morning that Ethan first found Thunder. The foal had been born prematurely, too weak to stand. The ranch vet had given up on the animal, saying it wouldn't survive the night. "Ethan, don't get attached," his father warned that day. "Nature has its way." But Ethan couldn't abandon the little foal. He spent the whole night in the stable, feeding him with a bottle, keeping him warm with old blankets. His mother, Sarah, brought coffee and bread in the early hours, finding her son determined to save the animal. "This boy has too big a heart," she whispered to Robert. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. Against all odds, the foal survived. Ethan named him Thunder because of the storm that raged that night, as if the sky was celebrating life's victory over death. The ranch owner, Mr. Anderson, impressed by the boy's dedication, allowed Ethan to care for the animal. The following months were pure joy for Ethan. Every day, before and after school, he ran to the stable. Thunder grew strong and healthy, developing a glossy brown coat and a mane as black as night. But the most remarkable thing was the bond between the boy and the horse. They seemed to understand each other without words. "That horse only listens to Ethan," remarked Joe, the ranch foreman. "Never seen anything like it." What no one knew was that Ethan talked to Thunder about everything, about troubles, at school, about his dreams of one day owning his own ranch, about missing his grandfather who had passed. The horse listened patiently, occasionally whinnying as if responding, but the happiness didn't last. When Thunder turned 2, tragedy struck the Miller family. Robert suffered a serious accident after falling from a roof he was repairing. The doctors were clear. He'd need expensive surgeries and months of physical therapy to walk again. "We don't have that kind of money," Sarah cried that night, holding her 3 children. Ethan was the oldest, followed by Emma, 8, and Noah, 5. Then Mr. Anderson made a decision that would change everything. On a hot December afternoon, he called Ethan into the main ranch office. The boy entered timidly, having never been in that imposing room with its dark wood furniture. "Ethan," began the farmer, a 60-year-old man with white hair and a kind gaze, "I know about your father's situation. I want to help." Ethan's heart filled with hope, but what came next left him stunned. "I'm giving Thunder to you. The horse is yours now. Do whatever you want with him." Ethan didn't understand at first. Why was Mr. Anderson giving away a horse worth a fortune? Thunder had proven to be an exceptional animal, with pure lineage and potential for competitions. "But sir," Ethan stammered. "No buts," Anderson interrupted. "You saved this horse, took care of him. I saw how you two connect. Besides..." The old farmer paused, his eyes growing distant. "You remind me of someone." Ethan left that office with a property document in his trembling hands and 1,000 questions in his head. When he told his parents, Robert, even lying in bed with his legs bandaged, cried. "This horse could be our salvation," he said. We could sell him, pay for the treatment. But Ethan couldn't imagine life without Thunder. The horse was more than an animal. He was his best friend, his confidant, his connection to something greater. That night, lying in the hay beside Thunder, Ethan made a promise. "I'll find another way to help Dad, but you stay with me." The following months were the hardest of Ethan's life. He started working on neighboring farms, cleaning stables, fixing fences, any job a 12-year-old boy could do. The money was little, but every penny went toward his father's treatment. Sarah also did her part, baking sweets to sell and taking in sewing jobs. Emma and Noah, though young, helped however they could. The Miller family was united in their struggle, but the medical bills kept piling up. Then they began noticing something extraordinary about Thunder. The horse wasn't just beautiful and strong, he had rare intelligence and sensitivity. When children from town visited the farm on school trips, Thunder seemed to know exactly how to behave with each one. With the shy ones, he was gentle and patient. With the more energetic, he showed controlled strength, earning their respect. "This horse is special," remarked Mrs. Dorothy, the local schoolteacher, after one visit. "He calmed down Marquis, who's hyperactive. I've never seen the boy so peaceful." Ethan started forming an idea. What if he could use Thunder's gift to help people while also earning some money? He talked to his mother about his plan. "Equine therapy?" Sarah repeated the unfamiliar term. "It's using horses to help people with difficulties, Mom. I saw it on the school's internet. Thunder would be perfect for it." But setting up an equine therapy center required investment, permits, and trained professionals. Once again, the dream seemed too far out of reach for a family struggling to pay basic bills. Then fate brought Richard Montgomery into Ethan's path. The businessman was visiting farms in the area, searching for exceptional horses for his stable in Lexington. Someone had mentioned the Miller boy's horse, an animal rumored to have something special. Richard arrived one Saturday afternoon, driving an imported truck that kicked up dust on the dirt road. Ethan was brushing Thunder when he saw the man approach. Tall, wearing a suit despite the country heat, Richard carried himself like someone close to getting what he wanted. "You must be Ethan," he said, extending his hand. "I've heard a lot about your horse." Ethan shook the man's hand, feeling the calluses from his own hard work against the businessman's smooth skin. "Good afternoon, sir." Richard circled Thunder, examining every detail with an expert eye. The horse remained calm, but Ethan noticed a different tension in his muscles. "Impressive," murmured Richard. "The conformation, the musculature, the temperament. How much do you want for him?" "He's not for sale," Ethan replied quickly. Richard smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Everything has a price, kid. How about $1 million?" Ethan felt the air leave his lungs. $1 million. More money than his family would see in several lifetimes. It could pay for his father's entire treatment, buy a better house, secure his siblings' education. "No," the word came out, before he could think. $2 million. Richard upped the offer as if it were nothing. Ethan wrapped his arms around Thunder's neck, feeling the familiar warmth of the animal. "You don't understand. Thunder isn't just a horse." $3 million. Richard's voice grew more serious. Ethan's mother appeared in the doorway, drawn by the commotion. Her eyes widened at the figure. "Ethan," she began, but fell silent when she saw her son's expression. "He's not for sale," Ethan repeated, firmer now. Richard pulled a checkbook from his jacket's inner pocket. $5 million. My final offer. The silence that followed was heavy. Sarah had to lean against the doorframe. Ethan felt tears burning his eyes. $5 million. It could solve all his family's problems. But how could he explain that Thunder was part of his soul? "I'm sorry, Mr. Montgomery, but I can't." And so they arrived at the present moment, with Richard still holding the check, incredulous at the refusal. The sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky orange and purple. "Are you crazy, kid?" Richard put the check away irritably. "Do you know what you could do with that money?" "I do, sir," Ethan replied, his voice thick. "But there are some things money can't buy." Richard shook his head, clearly thinking he was dealing with a stubborn, naive child. "I'll leave my card. When reality hits and you realize the mistake you're making, call me. But don't expect the offer to stay the same." He handed a gold-embossed card to Sarah and returned to his truck. Before getting in, he glanced once more at Ethan and Thunder. "Waste," he muttered and drove off, kicking up dust. Sarah approached her son, the card still in her trembling hands. "Ethan, son, 5 million. "I know, Mum." Ethan pressed his forehead against Thunder's. "But there's a reason. A reason I don't even fully understand yet." That night, the Miller family had a difficult conversation. Robert, leaning on crutches, now able to stand for a few minutes, gathered everyone in the small living room. "Ethan, I don't want you sacrificing your future for my sake," his father said. 5 million, we could start over." Emma and Noah looked from their father to their older brother, not fully grasping the magnitude of the decision. "Dad," Ethan began, choosing his words carefully, "when I was taking care of Thunder as a foal, Mr. Anderson came to see me in the stable. It was late at night. I thought it was strange." He stared at the colt for a long time, then said something. I've never forgotten. The whole family listened intently. He said, "That horse has a purpose, Ethan, and you're part of it. One day you'll understand." At the time, I thought it was just an old man's rambling, but now I feel it's true. "A purpose?" Sarah asked. "What kind of purpose?" "I can't explain," Ethan admitted. "But every time I think about selling Thunder, it's like something inside me screams no. Like I'd be breaking a promise I don't. So I even remember making." Robert and Sarah exchanged glances. They knew their son, Ethan, wasn't one for fantasies. If he felt this strongly, there was a reason. "What if—" Emma, usually quiet, spoke up. "What if we found another way to make money with Thunder without selling him?" Everyone turned to the 8-year-old. "What do you mean, Emma?" her mother asked. "Ethan talked about using Thunder to help people, right? What if we started small? Like charging a little bit for kids to ride him on weekends?" Ethan smiled at his sister. It was a start, a simple but possible idea. "We could make posters," Noah got excited. "I can draw Thunder really well." And so that night, instead of mourning the refused 5 million, the Miller family began planning a small business. They didn't know this decision would change not just their lives, but many others as well. The next day, Ethan woke up determined. He grabbed his school notebook and started doing the math. How much to charge? How to promote it? Where to get safety equipment? There were many questions, but for the first time in months he felt hope. Thunder seemed to notice the change in the boy's mood. He whinnied happily when Ethan approached, as if approving the plan. The first step was talking to Mrs. Clare, the school principal. She had always been close to the family and could help spread the word. "Rides with Thunder," she repeated, adjusting her glasses. "Ethan, do you realize the responsibility? What if a child gets hurt?" Ethan had thought about it all night. "You know Thunder, Mrs. Clare. You know how calm he is, and I'd always be right there guiding. We could start with very short rides just to help the kids get over their fear." The principal drummed her fingers on the desk, thoughtful. "What about insurance, parental permission?" Ethan showed her the notebook where he had written everything down. "I thought we could have a liability waiver, and the price would be very affordable, just enough to help with Dad's medicine." Mrs. Clare sighed. She knew the Millers' situation, knew how hard Ethan was trying to help. "I'll talk to some parents. But Ethan, if there's any trouble, we'll have to stop, understood?" Ethan left the school with a light heart. It was a start. The news about the refused 5 million had already spread through the small town. Opinions were divided. Some thought Ethan was crazy. Others admired his loyalty to the horse. But everyone was curious about this animal that was worth so much. The following Saturday, Ethan organized the first Ride with Thunder Day. With his mother's help, he prepared the horse, brushed him until he shone, braided his mane, polished his hooves. Thunder seemed to understand the importance of the moment, staying especially calm and majestic. The first customer was Olivia, a 6-year-old girl who was terrified of large animals. Her mother, Karen, was friends with Sarah and decided to give it a try. "I don't know if this will work," Karen whispered. "Olivia is even scared of dogs." Ethan knelt in front of the girl, who was hiding behind her mother's legs. "Hi, Olivia. Did you know Thunder was scared too when he was a baby?" The girl peeked with one eye. "Scared of what?" "Thunder. But you know how he got over it?" Ethan teased. Olivia shook her head, now with both eyes visible. I used to sing to him. A song my grandma taught me. Want to meet Thunder? I promise if you get scared, we'll stop right away. Slowly, very slowly, Olivia approached. Ethan held her little hand and guided her to Thunder. The horse, as if instructed, lowered his head gently, bringing it to the girl's level. He's soft, Olivia whispered, touching Thunder's muzzle. And you know. What else? Ethan continued. Thunder loves it when you pet him right here. He showed the spot between his ears. Within minutes, Olivia was laughing as she stroked the horse. When Ethan suggested a short ride, with him leading Thunder and her mother walking beside them, the girl agreed right away. The ride was a success. Olivia, who had arrived crying in fear, left promising to come back the next week. Karen paid the agreed amount, and even left a tip. Worth every penny to see my daughter this happy, she said, moved. The news spread. By the next weekend, there was a small line of parents and children waiting for their turn. Ethan organized everything: scheduled times, liability waivers, a designated area for the ride. But the true miracle happened with Matthew, a 9-year-old boy with cerebral palsy. His physical therapist, Dr. Rachel, had heard about Thunder and decided to bring her patient. I'm not expecting miracles, she told Ethan, but sometimes contact with animals helps with development. Ethan prepared everything with extra care. He used a special saddle he'd managed to borrow, safer for children with motor difficulties. When Matthew was placed on Thunder, something magical happened. The horse, always calm, grew even stiller, as if every muscle was focused on avoiding sudden movements. But the most astonishing thing was what happened to Matthew. The boy, who rarely showed facial expressions due to his condition, smiled, a wide, genuine smile that made his mother cry. He's feeling it, Dr. Rachel said, amazed. The horse's movement is stimulating muscles he doesn't normally use. The ride lasted only 10 minutes, but the impact was profound. Dr. Rachel immediately asked about regular sessions. Ethan, do you realize the therapeutic potential Thunder has? With proper training, you could establish a real equine therapy center. The seed was planted. But Ethan knew turning weekend rides into a full-fledged therapy center was a giant leap. It would take far more than goodwill. That same night, Ethan received an unexpected call. It was Mr. Anderson, his father's former employer. Ethan, I heard about the rides with Thunder. I need to talk to you. Can you come by tomorrow? Ethan felt a chill in his stomach. Had Mr. Anderson regretted giving him the horse? The ownership papers were in order, but still. The next day, Ethan went to the main farmhouse. He found Mr. Anderson on the porch drinking coffee. The man had aged in recent months, more wrinkles lining his kind face. Sit down, Ethan, he said, gesturing to the chair beside him. Coffee? Ethan accepted, his hands trembling slightly as he held the cup. I heard you turned down $5 million for Thunder, Anderson said bluntly. Yes, sir. Why? Ethan took a deep breath. You once told me Thunder had a mission. I think I'm starting to understand what it is. Anderson fell silent for a long moment, gazing at the pasture where the cows grazed peacefully. Ethan, let me tell you a story. 40 years ago, I had a son, Gabriel, about your age now. Ethan's eyes widened. He'd never known Mr. Anderson had a son. Gabriel loved horses more than anything in life. He had one in particular, a sorrel named Comet. They were inseparable, like you and Thunder. The old farmer's voice grew thick. One day, an American buyer offered a fortune for Comet. Greedy, thinking of the business's future, I convinced Gabriel to sell. I said we'd buy better horses, that it would be good for the farm. Anderson paused, swallowing hard. Gabriel never forgave me. Our relationship was never the same. He grew up, went to study in New York, distanced himself from the farm. From me, he died in a car accident at 25. We never reconciled. Ethan's eyes welled up. Now he understood so much. When I saw you with Thunder, Anderson continued, it was like seeing Gabriel and Comet again. The same connection, the same love. That's why I gave you the horse. And that's why I'm glad you turned down the $5 million. Mr. Anderson. There's more, the old man interrupted. I want to help with your equine therapy project. Not with money, you'll earn that through your work. but I can offer space here on the farm, help with the setup. Ethan couldn't hold back his tears. Why are you doing this? Because it's what I should have done for Gabriel. Supporting his dreams, not trying to mold them to fit mine. The two fell silent, watching the sun rise on the horizon. It was a new day, full of possibilities. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like the video and especially to subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. On his way home, Ethan felt a mix of emotions. Mr. Anderson's story explained a lot, but it also brought responsibilities. He was carrying not just his own dreams, but also the redemption of a father who had lost his chance with his own son. When he arrived, the family was in an uproar. Emma was running through the house with a paper in her hand. Ethan, look at this. It was an article in the local paper. Boy turns down fortune for love of his horse. The story had made the news. The phone hasn't stopped ringing, Sarah said. People wanting to meet Thunder, reporters asking for interviews. Ethan felt both pride and apprehension. The publicity could help the business, but it would also bring challenges, and the challenges weren't long in coming. On Monday, Ethan was approached at school by Tyler Manning, the son of the owner of the biggest horse farm in the area. So, you're the idiot who turned down $5 million, Tyler said, surrounded by his friends. Ethan tried to walk past, but Tyler blocked his way. My dad says you're just a dumb hick. That Thunder's nothing special and you made the whole thing up for attention. I didn't make anything up, Ethan replied, trying to stay calm. Prove it then. My dad has the best horses around. How about a race, your nag against one of our thoroughbreds? Ethan knew it was a provocation, but his pride spoke louder. Thunder isn't a racehorse. Because you know you'll lose, Tyler laughed. Coward, just like your dad. Can't even work anymore. That was the last straw. Ethan lunged forward, but was held back by his friend Charles. It's not worth it, Ethan. He's just trying to rile you up. Saturday at my dad's farm, Tyler shouted as he walked away. If you don't show, everyone will know you and your horse are a fraud. Ethan spent the rest of the day tormented. He knew he shouldn't have let himself be provoked, but the insult to his father had cut deep. At home, he told his family what had happened. You're not going through with this nonsense, Robert said firmly. The Mannings just want to humiliate our family. But Dad, if I don't go, they'll spread the word that Thunder is worthless. That could ruin the riding lessons. Sarah hugged her son. Ethan, you don't have anything to prove to anyone. But Ethan felt he did. Not for himself, but for Thunder, for his family, for everyone who was starting to believe in the project. Over the next few days, word of the supposed race spread. The town was divided. Some supported Ethan, others said he was foolish for accepting the challenge. Charles, Ethan's best friend, tried to talk him out of it. Dude, the Mannings. Horses are trained to race from birth. Thunder's special, but not like that. I know, Ethan admitted, but it's not about winning or losing. It's about showing that Thunder has value beyond price. On Thursday, Ethan got an unexpected visit. Dr. Rachel Matthews, physical therapist, came to the farm. Ethan, I'm here to ask you a favor. Don't go through with this race. Why? Because what you and Thunder have is worth so much more than any competition. Matthew has made incredible progress after his session. Other parents of special needs, kids are interested. If you turn Thunder into a racehorse, you'll lose that. The doctor's words echoed in Ethan's mind. She was right. But how could he explain that to a whole town expecting a showdown? On Friday night, the eve of the supposed race, Ethan went to the stable to talk to Thunder. The horse seemed to sense the boy's tension, resting his head on Ethan's shoulder in a comforting gesture. What do I do, buddy? Ethan whispered. If we don't go, they'll call us cowards. If we go and lose, they'll say you're worthless. Thunder whinnied softly, as if saying everything would be all right. That's when Ethan heard footsteps. He turned, expecting to see someone from the family, but was surprised to find Richard Montgomery instead. Good evening, Ethan, the businessman said, this time without his suit, wearing jeans and a simple shirt. Mr. Richard, what are you doing here? I came to see if you'd changed your mind about selling Thunder. And I heard about this nonsense with the Mannings. Ethan straightened his shoulders. I haven't changed my mind. Richard surprised him by smiling. Good. Ethan, I came here for another reason. After I left that day, I kept thinking, a boy who turns down 5 million is either very foolish or knows something I don't. And I did some research on you, your family, Thunder. I found out about the therapeutic rides. My nephew has autism, Ethan. We've tried everything, but he doesn't connect with anything or anyone. Ethan began to understand where the conversation was heading. Could we try a session with Thunder? Of course, Ethan replied without hesitation. But what about the competition? Richard waved a dismissive hand. The Mannings are idiots, always have been. But I have an idea, if you're willing. On Saturday morning, the Mannings' farm was packed. It seemed like half the town had come to watch the competition. Tyler strutted around with his Arabian horse, a magnificent animal that had cost a fortune. Where's the coward? He shouted. I knew he wouldn't show. Just then, Ethan appeared riding Thunder, but he wasn't alone. Behind him, in a small procession, were the families of the children who had taken part in the therapeutic rides. Matthew was in a wheelchair, pushed by his mother. Olivia held her father's hand, and other familiar faces joined the group. Tyler looked bewildered. What is this? The competition is just between the two of us. Ethan dismounted calmly. Tyler, I came here today, but not to compete the way you want. I knew you were a coward. Let me finish, Ethan continued, his voice growing stronger. Thunder isn't a racehorse. He was never trained for that. But he has another gift. Ethan signaled for Matthew to come forward. With help from his mother and the physical therapist, the boy was placed on Thunder. This is Matthew, Ethan said loudly for everyone to hear. 2 weeks ago, he could barely smile. Today, as if understanding the moment, Thunder began to walk slowly, with Matthew secure in the special saddle. The boy wasn't just smiling. He was trying to speak, guttural sounds of joy that moved everyone. And this is Olivia, Ethan went on when it was her turn. She was so afraid of animals, she couldn't even go near a dog. Olivia hugged Thunder's neck with confidence, waving to the crowd. One by one, Ethan introduced the children and shared their stories. How Thunder had helped Jack Vincent with his anxiety, how he had calmed Madison during a panic attack, how he had given Noah the confidence to overcome his stutter. The crowd that had come to see a competition was witnessing something far more powerful. Many had tears in their eyes. So, Tyler, Ethan turned to the boy who now seemed much smaller in his arrogance. Can your horse run faster than Thunder? Probably. Can he jump higher? Absolutely, but can he do this? Silence was the answer. It was Tyler's father, Richard Manning, who broke the silence. Impressive, he said, stepping forward. Ethan, you have something special here. Tyler looked at his father, confused. But Dad, enough, Tyler. You need to learn that value isn't just measured in speed or price. Richard turned to Ethan. Young man, I have a proposal. Not to buy Thunder, but for a partnership. My stable has the facilities. You have the gift and the special horse. We could set up a real equine therapy center. Ethan looked at Thunder, then at the families around them. Thank you, Mr. Richard. But I already have a partner. Mr. Anderson is letting us use space on his farm. Richard nodded, respecting the decision. The offer still stands if you need it. The competition had ended unexpectedly, but in a way, far more meaningful than any race could have been. People left talking about what they'd witnessed, and many asked how they could schedule sessions for their children or relatives. Back at home, the Miller family was overjoyed. Even Robert, still recovering, seemed livelier. I'm proud of you, son, he said, hugging Ethan. You showed there are different kinds of strength. But the joy didn't last long. On Monday, Ethan received an official notice. The city, responding to an anonymous complaint, informed him he couldn't continue his activities without the proper permits. Fines would be imposed if he did. Anonymous complaint, my foot, Sarah muttered. I bet it was the Mannings, still bitter about being humiliated. Ethan felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. The permits required documentation, fees, and facility adjustments, money they didn't have. What now? Emma asked, seeing her brother's discouragement. Ethan didn't know how to answer. He turned down $5 million to keep Thunder, and now he couldn't even use the horse to help people. It was Dr. Rachel who brought a glimmer of hope. She arrived at the farm 2 days later with a folder full of papers. "Ethan, I've organized a group of parents. They all want to help legalize the equine therapy center." "But doctor, the fees, the bureaucracy." "We've already handled it. We started a fundraiser and I have contacts in the health department who can speed things up." Ethan could hardly believe it. In 2 weeks, the impossible began to take shape. The parents organized themselves. One was a lawyer and handled the legal side, another was an engineer and drafted the facility plans, and one was an accountant who sorted out all the financial paperwork. Mr. Anderson kept his promise, providing not just the space, but also helping build the necessary structures, an access ramp, adapted restrooms, a covered area for rainy days. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. The bureaucracy was slow, and while they waited for the permits, Ethan couldn't see the children. The weeks dragged on, and the family's financial strain continued. One particularly tough afternoon, when Robert had a relapse and had to be hospitalized again, Ethan nearly gave up. Sitting beside Thunder in the pasture, Richard Montgomery's card in his hand, he fought the temptation. "Maybe I should have taken it," he murmured. "Dad would be better off. We wouldn't be going through this." Thunder snorted and nudged Ethan with his nose, as if disagreeing. "Easy for you," Ethan said with a sad smile. "You don't see Mom crying when she thinks no one's looking. Or Emma and Noah splitting a snack because money's tight." Just then he heard a voice behind him. "Ethan?" It was Gabriel, Richard Montgomery's autistic nephew, a 10-year-old boy Ethan had never met before, standing with his uncle. "Sorry to show up like this," Richard said, but Gabriel insisted. "Ever since I told him about Thunder, he hasn't stopped talking about it." Ethan noticed Gabriel avoided eye contact, his hands moving in repetitive patterns, typical of the autism spectrum. "Hi, Gabriel," Ethan said softly. "Want to meet Thunder?" The boy didn't answer, but stepped closer to the horse. Thunder, with that inexplicable sensitivity, stood perfectly still. Gabriel hesitantly reached out and touched the black mane. What happened next left Richard in tears. Gabriel, who rarely spoke and never in full sentences, said clearly, "Pretty. Horse, can I hug?" "Of course you can," Ethan replied, moved. Gabriel hugged Thunder's neck, and for the first time in years, Richard saw his nephew completely relaxed, without the repetitive movements that had characterized him. "This is—" "I have no words," Richard said. "Ethan, what you have here is truly special. Forget the 5 million. I want to invest in the Equine Therapy Center, not as an owner, but as a silent partner." Ethan looked from Gabriel to Richard, understanding the businessman's change of heart. "What made you change your mind?" "Because I saw my nephew speak and smile for the first time in 3 years. That's priceless." With Richard's investment, things moved quickly. The permits were approved, the structure was finalized, and specialized professionals were hired. Ethan would remain the heart of the project, but now with proper technical support. The Thunder Equine Therapy Center was inaugurated on a sunny spring morning. The entire town seemed to be there. Even the Mannings showed up, with Tyler visibly embarrassed but seemingly regretful about his past taunts. Mr. Anderson gave the opening speech, his voice breaking as he spoke about second chances and dreams fulfilled. Robert, now recovered thanks to the treatment they could afford with the center's first profits, stood by his family, proud of his son. "Today we're not just opening a therapy center," Mr. Anderson said. "We're opening a place where small miracles happen every day, where a boy and a horse prove that love and dedication are worth more than all the money in the world." The first official sessions were emotional. Children with different needs found in Thunder a patient and welcoming friend. Ethan, now assisted by professional therapists, learned more each day about how to maximize the benefits of equine therapy. But life still held surprises. One ordinary afternoon, 3 months after the inauguration, an elegant woman appeared at the center. She was around 60, with well-kept gray hair and an air of mystery. "I'm looking for Ethan Miller," she said. "That's me," Ethan replied, curious. "My name is Helen Anderson Montgomery. I'm August Anderson's sister." Ethan's eyes widened. He had never known Mr. Anderson had a sister. "I came from New York as soon as I heard about the center. I need to tell a story my brother doesn't know I know. She looked around, making sure they were alone. The horse you saved, Thunder, is a direct descendant of Comet. Comet? Gabriel's horse. Helen nodded. Before he died, Gabriel had left behind a pregnant mare. He planned to raise the foal to fulfill his dream of having his own stable. The mare was a descendant of Comet. When Gabriel died, August wanted to get rid of everything that reminded him of his son. He sold the pregnant mare. Ethan felt the puzzle pieces falling into place. For years, August searched for descendants of Comet, full of regret. When Thunder was born on that farm, he recognized the lineage. That's why he followed everything, why he gave the horse to you. It was his way of honoring Gabriel's memory. But why are you telling me this? Helen smiled. Because you deserve to know the truth. And because I have a proposal. I'm a veterinarian specialized in equine therapy. I recently retired and would like to work here as a volunteer. It would be a way to reconnect with my brother and honor my nephew's memory. Ethan accepted immediately. Helen brought not only technical knowledge, but also stories about Gabriel that helped Mr. Anderson process his grief. The center grew every day. Families came from neighboring towns, and the waiting list grew longer. Ethan had to train assistants and expand the schedule. Thunder, always at the center of it all, seemed tireless in his mission to help, but it was Isabella's case that marked a new chapter in the story. Isabella was 8 years old and had suffered severe trauma. He hadn't spoken in 2 years, ever since witnessing an accident. His parents had tried every kind of therapy without success. "This is our last resort," said his mother, Julie, with tears in her eyes. The first sessions were tough. Isabella remained rigid around Thunder, showing no emotion. Ethan didn't give up, talking to her constantly, even without a response. It was during the 5th session that something changed. Ethan was telling her how he had saved Thunder as a foal when he noticed a tear rolling down Isabella's cheek. He was scared too, Ethan continued softly, but he overcame his fear. "You can too, Isabella." Thunder, sensing the moment, let out a gentle whinny, and then in a whisper, "Can I pet him?" Those were Isabella's first words in 2 years. Ethan fought back his own tears as he guided the girl's hand to Thunder's mane. Isabella's recovery was gradual but steady. The news spread, bringing even more credibility to the center. Reports were written. Donations began pouring in. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. But with success came new challenges. Some questioned their methods while others tried to copy their model without the necessary care. Ethan found himself having to protect not just Thunder, but the integrity of the work they were doing. That's when Dr. Mark Bennett appeared, a renowned veterinarian who claimed to be an expert in equine behavior. He visited the center with an air of superiority, scrutinizing everything with a critical eye. "Interesting work," he told Ethan, "but based more on luck than science. This horse needs proper professional training." "Thunder already does amazing work just as he is," Ethan argued. "Amateurism," Bennett scoffed. "I'm developing a scientific training method for equine therapy. With the right techniques, any horse can do what yours does." Ethan felt anger, but held back. Helen, who had been listening, stepped in. "Dr. Bennett, with all due respect, I've worked in equine therapy for 30 years. What Ethan and Thunder have here can't be replicated with methods. It's genuine connection." "We'll see," Bennett said before leaving, casting a heavy atmosphere behind him. In the weeks that followed, they learned Bennett was opening a competing center in a neighboring town, promising scientific equine therapy with guaranteed results. Some parents, impressed by the veterinarian's credentials, transferred their children. Ethan was shaken. After everything they had built, seeing families leave the center hurt. "It's not about competition," Sarah consoled her son. "It's about helping children. If they're helped there, it's still a victory." But reality proved different. A month later, families began returning. Bennett's scientifically trained horses were efficient, but they lacked something essential: the emotional connection Thunder provided. "It was a mistake," admitted Charles Edward, the father of one of the boys. "There, everything feels mechanical. Here, Thunder truly cares about the children. Bennett's center closed within 6 months. The veterinarian himself appeared at the Thunder Equine Therapy Center, humbled. "I was wrong," he admitted. "I've spent my life studying horses, but you taught me something that isn't in the books. Can I observe your sessions?" "I promise not to interfere." Ethan, showing maturity beyond his years, agreed. Bennett became a frequent observer and eventually an advocate for the work being done there. Time passed. Ethan grew, not just in age but in wisdom. By 16, he was nationally recognized as a reference in intuitive equine therapy. Universities invited him to speak, even without formal training. Thunder, now 5 years old, was in the prime of his life. Hundreds of children had been helped by him. The center had expanded. Other horses had been added, but Thunder remained the heart of it all. It was during one of these lectures at New York University that Ethan unexpectedly ran into someone. Tyler Manning. "Ethan," Tyler approached after the presentation. "Can I talk to you?" Ethan barely recognized his old rival. Tyler looked different, more humble. "Of course, Tyler. I want to apologize for everything, and I also want to thank you." "Thank me?" "My younger brother Thomas was born with Down syndrome. My parents didn't want to accept it. They thought it was a shame. But after what I saw that day at the farm, with Thunder and the kids, I convinced them to try equine therapy." Ethan smiled, understanding where this was going. "Is Thomas doing well?" "Better than well. He loves the horses. He's progressing beyond what the doctors predicted. And I've changed." "Ethan, I'm studying physical therapy now. I want to work with special needs kids." The two young men hugged, leaving the past firmly behind them. Back home, Ethan found his family gathered for a special dinner. It was the center's 3rd anniversary. "A toast," proposed Robert, now fully recovered and working as the center's administrator. "To my son, who taught me that true wealth isn't counted in dollars." "To Ethan?" everyone cheered. After dinner, Ethan went to the stable to see Thunder. The horse greeted him with his usual affection. "You know, buddy," Ethan said, brushing the dark mane, "sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd taken those 5 million. Thunder snorted as if the idea was absurd. "Yeah, you're right. We wouldn't be us." Just then he heard footsteps. It was Richard Montgomery, who had come for the celebration. "Ethan, I need to confess something," the businessman said. "That day when I offered you 5 million, I knew you'd refuse." "What do you mean?" "I had investigated you, remember? I knew about your connection with Thunder. I made the offer to test your conviction, and you passed spectacularly." Ethan was stunned. "So it was all a test?" "Not all. I really would have bought Thunder if you'd accepted, but I'd have been disappointed. Thankfully, you proved there are still people who value what truly matters." "And Gabriel, was he part of the test too?" "No," Richard quickly replied. "Gabriel is real. His progress is real. In fact, he asks about Thunder every day. He's become his best imaginary friend." The two laughed. Ethan realized every person in his journey had played an important role, even those who seemed like antagonists. In the following months, the center faced new challenges. Growing demand called for expansion, but Ethan insisted on maintaining the quality and personalized care that were their hallmark. It was Helen who suggested the solution. "Instead of growing, why not multiply? Train people in other cities to start their own centers, following your philosophy." And so the Thunder Project was born, a training program for new humane equine therapy centers. Ethan traveled across the United States, teaching not just techniques, but the importance of a genuine connection between horse and patient. But life still held twists. One winter morning, Ethan woke to Emma crying. "Thunder isn't acting right, Ethan. He won't get up." Ethan rushed to the stable. Thunder was lying down, breathing heavily. Helen examined the horse quickly. "It's colic, severe. We need to act fast." The next few hours were agonizing. The emergency vet was called, medications were given. Word spread, and soon the center was full of worried families. Children who had been helped by Thunder came to leave drawings and little notes. "He'll be okay," Matthew, now able to walk with crutches, told Ethan. "Thunder is strong." The night was long. Ethan didn't leave the horse's side, talking to him, reminiscing about moments they'd shared. Around 3 in the morning, Thunder finally stood up, weak but steady. "The crisis has passed," confirmed the vet, "but he'll need rest and special care." The scare made Ethan realize Thunder wasn't immortal. The horse who seemed tireless also had his limits. Decisions needed to be made about the future. "Maybe it's time for Thunder to retire from sessions," Helen suggested gently. Ethan knew she was right, but the idea pained him. What would the center be without him? "The center is more than Thunder now," said Richard, who had also spent the night there. "It's a philosophy, a way of caring. Thunder was the beginning, but he doesn't have to carry the weight alone forever." After much reflection, Ethan made his decision. Thunder would gradually retire from regular sessions, participating only in special cases. New horses, trained with the same philosophy of connection and care, would take over most of the work. The transition wasn't easy. Many families resisted, wanting only Thunder, but Ethan patiently explained, "Thunder taught other horses to be special too. He deserves some rest, don't you think?" One of the new horses was Star, a mare rescued from abuse. Traumatized and skittish, no one believed she could work with children, but Thunder, in his equine wisdom, accepted and calmed her. "It's like he's passing the torch," observed Emma, now 14 and actively helping at the center. Star exceeded expectations. Her story of overcoming adversity created a special bond with children who had also suffered trauma. Soon she had her own list of little fans. The Thunder Equine Therapy Center celebrated its 5th anniversary with a grand celebration. What had begun with a boy refusing $5 million had become a national reference in compassionate equine therapy. Documentaries were made, books written, but Ethan kept his feet on the ground. "Never forget," he said in his anniversary speech, "it all started with an act of love. A boy who wouldn't give up on a dying colt. That love, that refusal to quit, is what we do here every day." Mr. Anderson, now reconciled with his sister Helen and at peace with his son's memory, openly wept. "Gabriel would be proud," Helen whispered, holding her brother's hand. But the story still had chapters to write. On an ordinary afternoon, Ethan received a letter that would change everything. The envelope bore an international stamp from the United States. "Dear Mr. Miller," the letter began in careful English, "my name is Dr. Michael Thompson, Director of the International Institute of Equine Therapy. We've learned of your revolutionary work and would like to invite you to present your methods. At our annual conference..." Ethan read and reread the letter. It was recognition beyond anything he'd imagined. "Will you go?" asked Sarah, proud. "I don't know." "What about the center and Thunder?" "The center has a wonderful team now," Robert reminded him, "and Thunder will be well cared for. This is a chance to take our message to the world." After much deliberation, Ethan accepted. The trip would be in 3 months, plenty of time to prepare. But first he had something important to do. On a sunny morning, Ethan gathered all the children at the center, current and past. Thunder was in the pasture, resting but alert. "I want to tell you a story," Ethan began, "about a boy who was offered $5 million. The children listened, fascinated, as Ethan recounted the entire journey, how he'd refused the fortune, the challenges faced, the victories won. "But why did you say no to the money?" a new little girl asked. Ethan looked at Thunder, who seemed to be listening. "Because some things don't have a price. Friendship, love, the chance to make a difference in someone's life. $5 million could buy many things, but it couldn't buy your smiles, the progress you make, or the daily miracles that happen here." "Then you've never regretted it?" another boy asked. Ethan smiled. "Never. Every time I see one of you overcome a challenge, I know I made the right choice." The preparations for the international trip began. Ethan studied English intensively, prepared presentations, and organized videos of the sessions. The entire community mobilized to help. But 2 weeks before the trip, another crisis struck. Noah, Ethan's younger brother, now 12 years old, had a bicycle accident. Nothing serious physically, but the scare left him with a paralyzing fear of leaving the house. "I'm not going back to school," Noah cried. What if it happens again? The family tried everything, talks, promises, even scolding. Nothing worked. It was Emma who had the idea. What if Noah had a session with Thunder, not as work but as family? Ethan felt foolish for not thinking of it sooner. The next day he took Noah to Thunder. "I don't want to," Noah resisted. "You don't have to ride," Ethan assured him. "Just be near him for a little while." Thunder, with his special intuition, slowly approached Noah. He lowered his head to the boy's level and stood perfectly still. "He knows you're scared," Ethan said softly, "but he's telling you it's okay to feel afraid." Noah hesitantly touched Thunder. The horse responded with a gentle whinny. "You know," Ethan continued, "Thunder was once very afraid too. When he was a baby, he almost died, but he overcame it. Not because he stopped feeling fear, but because he learned fear doesn't have to control us." It took several sessions, but gradually Noah regained his confidence. The day he rode his bike again, with Thunder walking beside him for courage, the whole family cried. "You saved our brother," Emma hugged Ethan. "Thunder saved him," Ethan corrected. "I just translated." The trip to the United States grew closer. The night before, Ethan made sure to spend the evening in the stable with Thunder, just like old times. "I'm going to tell our story to the world," he told the horse, "to show what we have here is special." Thunder rested his head on Ethan's shoulder, a gesture that had become tradition between them. "I promise I'll come back soon, and when I do, we'll keep changing lives together." The presentation at the international conference was a success beyond expectations. Professionals from dozens of countries listened, fascinated to the story of the American boy who turned down millions because he believed in something greater. "What you've created in the United States isn't just an equine therapy center," Dr. Thompson said in closing. "It's a model of how love and dedication can transform lives. The world needs more Ethans and Thunders." Ethan returned with invitations for international consulting, scholarship offers, and partnership proposals. But his priority remained the center in Pleasant Creek. "The world can wait," he told his family. "Our work here isn't done yet." And he was right. New challenges arose constantly. One of them was Leah, a 15-year-old girl with severe depression. After multiple suicide attempts, her parents were desperate. "This is our last hope," her mother said. "If this doesn't work..." The pressure was immense. Ethan knew not every case was guaranteed success, but something about Leah moved him deeply. The first sessions were silent. Leah refused to speak, only riding Thunder and staying still. Ethan respected her silence, just ensuring her safety. It was in the 6th session that something changed. Leah finally spoke. "Why does he accept me?" "Who? Thunder?" "Yes. I'm broken. Everyone gives up on me. Why doesn't he?" Ethan thought carefully before answering. "Because Thunder doesn't see broken people. He just sees people, that's all, and he likes people as they are." "I wish I could be a horse," Leah said, and for the first time in months she managed to smile. Leah's progress was slow but steady. She began helping at the center, taking care of the horses. She found purpose in helping other struggling children. "You saved my daughter," Leah's father told Ethan months later. "I don't know how to thank you." "Seeing her smile is thanks enough," Ethan replied sincerely. Working with teenagers brought a new dimension to the center. Ethan realized that Thunder had a special gift, not just with children, but with anyone in pain. That's when the boldest idea yet came to him, creating a program for elderly people suffering from depression and isolation. The proposal faced initial resistance. "Seniors riding horses, that's dangerous," some criticized. But Ethan persisted, adapting the program. Not everyone would ride. Some would simply interact with the horses, brushing, feeding, talking to them. Mrs. Teresa, 78, was the first participant. A recent widow, she had withdrawn from the world. "Nothing makes sense anymore," she said on the first day. Ethan took her to Thunder, now calmer with age but still majestic. "This is Thunder. He's also lost dear friends, horses who once shared the pasture with him, but he's still here offering love to those who need it." Mrs. Teresa hesitantly stroked Thunder. The horse responded by gently nuzzling her. "He's warm," she observed, surprised. Life is warm, Ethan said, even when it feels cold. The program for seniors became another success. Mrs. Teresa became a regular volunteer, finding new purpose in waking up each morning. Other seniors followed, creating a vibrant community at the center. Time kept passing. Ethan, now 18, faced decisions about college. Scholarship offers in veterinary medicine, psychology, and physical therapy kept coming. "You need to study," Sarah insisted. "Formalize your knowledge." Ethan agreed, but he didn't want to leave the center. The solution came unexpectedly. Kentucky State University offered to create a special program combining studies with hands-on work at the center. It would be the first integrative equine therapy program in the country, the dean explained. "And you'd be our first student and collaborator." It was perfect. Ethan could study without leaving Thunder or the center, but life, always full of surprises, brought the most unexpected challenge. One autumn morning, Richard Montgomery arrived at the center with a serious expression. "Ethan, I need to tell you something. Remember when I offered $5 million for Thunder? How could I forget? There was something I didn't tell you. I knew who Thunder was. I knew about his lineage, his connection to Comet." Ethan was confused, but Helen said no one knew. Helen didn't know I knew. You see, Gabriel Anderson was my best friend in my youth. Before he died, he told me about the pregnant mare and made me promise to look after the bloodline. Ethan felt the ground vanish beneath him. "So I searched for years. When I finally found Thunder with you, I made the offer. But I saw your bond with him, saw what you were building. I decided Gabriel would be happier this way." "Why? Are you telling me this now?" Richard took a deep breath. "Because I'm sick, Ethan. The doctors gave me a few months. I need to set things right, and I need to ask a favor." Ethan held the hand of the man who had once been his antagonist. "Anything. Take care of Gabriel, my nephew. When I'm gone, he'll only have Thunder and you. Promise you won't let him lose that connection." "I promise," Ethan said without hesitation. The following months were intense. Richard fought bravely, but the illness progressed. Gabriel spent more and more time at the center, finding stability in Thunder and Ethan. When Richard passed away on a quiet winter afternoon, Gabriel was riding Thunder. He seemed to sense it at the exact moment, because he stopped and said, "Uncle went to heaven, but he's happy." Ethan hugged the boy, now a permanent part of the center's family. Richard's loss brought reflections on legacy and continuity. Ethan realized the center needed to prepare for the future, for the day when he and Thunder would no longer be there. "We need to train more people," he said in a meeting with the team. "Not just technicians, but people who understand the soul of what we do." That's how Thunder School was born, a training program that went beyond techniques. Young people from all over the United States came to learn not just equine therapy, but the philosophy of connection and care that defined the center. Among the first students was Olivia, the girl who years ago had been afraid of animals and was one of the first children treated. "I want to give back," she said, now 16. "Thunder changed my life. I want to change other lives too." Seeing the children he had helped return as collaborators was Ethan's greatest reward. Thunder, now 12, showed signs of age but kept his youthful spirit. His sessions were more spaced out, reserved for special cases, but his presence at the center remained essential. One special afternoon, all the Thunder children, as everyone, helped by the horse was affectionately called, gathered for a tribute. There were hundreds of them of all ages, each with a story of overcoming. "This horse," Ethan said emotionally in his speech, "proved that $5 million can't buy what truly matters. Each of you is living proof that I made the right choice." Matthew, now walking without assistance, was the first to speak. "Thunder taught me that limitations exist to be overcome." Isabella, healed from her trauma, and as talkative as any child her age, continued, "He showed me that silence can be broken with love." One by one they shared what Thunder meant to them. Tears flowed freely, filled with emotion and gratitude. But the afternoon held a surprise. Emma stepped onto the small makeshift stage. "I have an announcement. I know many worry about the day Thunder won't be with us anymore. So I want to share something. Star is pregnant, and the father is Thunder." The joy was overwhelming. The lineage would continue, not just genetically but in spirit. Everyone anxiously followed Star's pregnancy. Ultrasounds became community. Events and bets were placed on the foal's gender. On a spring dawn, Star went into labor. Ethan, Helen, and the veterinary team watched closely. After hours of tension, a perfect foal was born, with the same chestnut coat as his father. "What should we name him?" Emma asked. Ethan looked at Thunder, who observed everything from the neighboring stall, and smiled. "Hope. We'll call him Hope." The foal grew strong and healthy, showing early signs of the same sensitivity as his father. Thunder, now a mentor, patiently taught his young one, but Ethan knew each horse was unique. Hope wouldn't be another Thunder. He'd be himself, with his own gifts. Life went on. Ethan graduated with honors from the university's special program, officially becoming the first integrative equine therapist in the United States. The diploma was important, but everyone knew his real knowledge came from experience. Thunder Equine Therapy Center became an international model. Delegations came to study the methods, always surprised to find the secret was simply love and dedication. During one such visit, Dr. Catherine Mills, considered the world's leading authority on equine therapy, arrived. "I've studied your approach for years," she told Ethan. "I've tried replicating it elsewhere, but something's always missing." "What do you think it is?" Ethan asked, genuinely curious. "Soul," she replied simply. "You have soul here. That can't be taught in a manual." The validation was gratifying, but Ethan remained humble. He knew the credit was shared among many, especially Thunder. At 25, Ethan faced a new dilemma. $1 million offers came in to expand the center into a franchise, turning it into a national network. "Think of the good you could do," the investors argued. "Hundreds of Thunders across the United States." It was tempting, but Ethan remembered the lesson he'd learned years before. Some things lose their essence when you try to multiply them too much. "I'd rather inspire others to create their own centers," he decided. With their own soul, their own Thunders. The decision proved wise. Instead of franchises, independent but philosophically connected centers were born. The Thunder Network wasn't a business. It was hearts united by the same purpose. Thunder reached 20 years old in remarkable shape for his age. Veterans said it was rare for a horse of that age to maintain such vitality. Ethan knew it was purpose that kept him strong. One quiet afternoon, Ethan found Thunder lying in his favorite pasture, Hope by his side. For a moment he feared the worst, but the horse was simply resting, watching the sunset. "You've taught me so much, my friend," Ethan said, sitting beside him. "About choices, about real value, about unconditional love." Thunder turned his head, those wise eyes gazing at Ethan with the same affection as always. "I promise your legacy will live on. Not just in Hope, but in every life we've touched." In that moment, Ethan fully understood why he'd refused the $5 million so many years ago. It hadn't just been for Thunder. It had been for everything they represented together. Proof that some things are more valuable than money. The sun set, painting the sky with the same colors as that fateful afternoon when Richard had made his offer. But now, instead of doubt, Ethan felt absolute certainty. He stood, gave Thunder one last pat for the day, and walked back to the center. Children were waiting, stories of triumph waiting to be written, lives waiting to be transformed. And somewhere, perhaps another boy would face a similar choice, easy money or true purpose. Ethan hoped his story would inspire the right choice, because in the end, the $5 million he'd refused had multiplied into something infinitely more valuable, thousands of smiles, countless victories, and the undeniable proof that love has no price. Thunder whinnied softly in the distance as if in agreement, and life, in all its imperfect and miraculous beauty, went on. But the story still held important chapters. 2 years later, an unexpected situation would test Ethan's values once again. A multinational pharmaceutical company approached the center with an unusual proposal. They wanted to study why some horses, like Thunder, had this special ability for therapeutic connection. "Imagine if we could identify and scientifically replicate it," said Dr. Harrison, their representative. "We could train horses all over the world." The offer included massive investment in the center, cutting-edge equipment, and a share in the profits of any potential discovery. Ethan gathered the team to discuss. Opinions were divided. It could help so many people, argued one therapist, or it could turn something natural into a product, countered Helen. Ethan spent nights thinking. He talked at length with Thunder, as he always did with big decisions. The answer came while watching Hope with a new patient, a boy with severe autism. The young horse showed the same intuition as his father, but in his own unique way, adapted to his personality. "It's not something you can put into a formula," Ethan told Dr. Harrison. "It's like trying to bottle love. The moment you try, it slips away." "You're turning down a chance to revolutionize equine therapy worldwide," Harrison insisted. "I'm preserving what makes it special," Ethan replied firmly. The company left, but Ethan knew he'd made the right choice. Once again, he had chosen essence over profit. This decision brought unexpected consequences. The media caught wind of it, and Ethan found himself at the center of a national debate on ethics in animal therapy. Some called him backward, hindering scientific progress. Others saw him as the guardian of something sacred that science should not touch. Amid the controversy, a letter arrived that would change everything. The sender was Gabriel Anderson, not the deceased son of Mr. Anderson, but another Gabriel who signed as grandson. "Dear Ethan," the letter began, "you don't know me, but I grew up hearing about you and Thunder. I'm the son of a distant cousin of Gabriel Anderson, the one who died young. I was named in his honor. I'm writing because I've discovered something you need to know." Ethan read with a racing heart. The new Gabriel had found diaries from the original Gabriel, written before his death. In them were details about Comet and a hidden secret. They arranged to meet. Gabriel arrived on a rainy afternoon, a young man in his early 20s with the same kind eyes Mr. Anderson had described in his son. "I brought the diaries," he said, handing over yellowed notebooks. Ethan read eagerly. The original Gabriel's words were poetic, full of love for horses. But one specific entry stood out. "Comet taught me that some beings are born with a special mission. There aren't many, but when they appear, they change everything around them. He promised me, before leaving, that his lineage would continue this mission. I know it sounds crazy, but I swear he understood and promised." Ethan felt chills. The connection between Comet, Thunder, and now Hope took on an almost mystical dimension. "There's more," the new Gabriel said. "I found old photos and videos. Comet doing exactly what Thunder does. The same sensitivity, the same intuition. So it's genetic." "It's more than that." Gabriel picked up another diary. Here Gabriel talks about purpose transmission, as if some animals pass down not just genes but a kind of mission consciousness. Ethan knew they were venturing into territory science would deem impossible, but his experience told him there was truth in it. "What do you plan to do with this information?" he asked Gabriel. "I came to give it to you. My cousin Gabriel entrusted this to Comet. Comet passed it to Thunder, and now it's your responsibility to decide what to do." Ethan carefully stored the diaries. They confirmed what he had always sensed. There was something special in that lineage, something beyond rational explanation. The arrival of the new Gabriel also brought fresh energy to the center. He decided to stay, helping with historical research and documenting their work. "It's like the circle is closing," Helen remarked. "One Gabriel is gone, another has come." Mr. Anderson, now very old but sharp, wept upon meeting the young man. "It's like having a piece of my son back," he said, embracing him. The work at the center continued to expand. Now they served not only children and the elderly, but also war veterans with post-traumatic stress, women recovering from violence seeking to rebuild confidence, and even executives burned out and needing to reconnect with their essence. Each group brought unique challenges. The veterans, initially resistant, found in the horses companions who didn't judge their trauma. Sergeant Riley was a striking case. After 2 tours in Afghanistan, he suffered from nightmares and isolation. In his first session, he tensed as he approached Hope. "I don't trust anything or anyone," he said. "Hope had to learn to trust too," Ethan replied. "She was born into a big, scary world. But she learned not everything is a threat." It took weeks, but gradually Riley let his guard down. The turning point came when, during a panic attack, Hope approached and stood motionless beside him, offering silent presence. "He understands," Riley said through tears. "He just understands." The Veterans Program had become a benchmark, attracting attention from the armed forces, but Ethan was careful not to militarize the space, preserving its atmosphere of peace. Thunder, now requiring special geriatric care, still made occasional appearances. His mere presence calmed even the most tense environments. It was during one of these appearances that something extraordinary happened. Melissa, a woman who had lost her speech after severe trauma, was in her 10th session with no progress. Thunder, watching from a nearby fence, suddenly neighed insistently. Ethan, recognizing his old friend's signals, decided to bring him over. The elderly horse approached Melissa with infinite care. He gently rested his head on her shoulder and stayed there. Melissa began to cry, then sob, and then, for the first time in 2 years, "Thank you," the words came out hoarse but clear. The medical team present was stunned. There was no neurological explanation for such a sudden recovery. But Ethan didn't need explanations. He knew Thunder's power. "How did he know?" asked Melissa's psychologist. "He always knows," Ethan replied simply. Melissa's story went viral, bringing worldwide attention once again. Offers poured in, documentaries, books, even a Hollywood movie. Ethan accepted selectively, always protecting patients' privacy and the integrity of their work. The documentary, They Allowed, directed by a sensitive filmmaker, won international awards. But fame brought challenges. Desperate people came from afar expecting instant miracles. Ethan constantly had to explain that each case was unique, with no guarantees. "We're not a miracle factory," he'd say. "We're facilitators of possibilities." That's when he met Madison, a neuroscientist who arrived skeptical but curious. "I want to understand what happens here," she said, "not to replicate or commercialize it, but to comprehend it." Ethan let her observe, with strict conditions of non-interference. Madison spent months documenting, measuring, analyzing. "You know what I discovered," she said at the end, "that some things science still can't measure. The connection between you and the horses activates something primal in our brains, something older than language, older than trauma. And can it be reproduced? Not synthetically. It's like trying to recreate a mother's love in a lab. You can mimic aspects, but the essence is unique." Madison became an ally, publishing articles that scientifically validated their work without reducing it to formulas. Time marched on inexorably. One winter morning, Thunder didn't get up. Ethan, now 30, knew the moment had come. The entire center's family gathered. Children, now grown, whom he had helped, came to say goodbye. The stable was filled with love and gratitude. "You fulfilled your mission, my friend," Ethan whispered, lying beside him. "You can rest now." Thunder passed at sunset, surrounded by everyone who loved him. There was no despair, only deep gratitude for all they had shared. Thunder's funeral was a community event. Hundreds came to honor the horse who had changed so many lives. He was buried in his favorite field, where he loved to watch the sunset. "Today we don't lose Thunder," Ethan said in his speech. "Today he becomes eternal. He lives in every person he helped, in every smile he brought, in every breakthrough he made." Hope, as if understanding the moment, let out a long neigh. It was a farewell, but also a promise of continuity. In the following months, the center went through collective mourning, but also renewal. Thunder's story inspired new volunteers, new donations, new purpose. Ethan created the Thunder Memorial, not as a place of sadness, but of celebration. Photos, letters, children's drawings, videos of special moments. Visitors came to learn the story of the horse who was worth more than $5 million. 1 year after Thunder's passing, Ethan received a visit that would perfectly close the circle. It was Isabella, the girl who had regained her speech thanks to Thunder. Now a licensed veterinarian, she had returned to work at the center. "I came to give back," she said. "Thunder gave me my voice. I want to use that voice to continue his work." One by one, many returned. The center became a living example of how goodness multiplies when planted with love. Hope, now fully grown, carried the legacy with his own grace. He wasn't Thunder, but he was equally special in his own way. and already had his own collection of small and large miracles. On a quiet afternoon, 5 years after Thunder's death, Ethan received a letter that moved him deeply. It was from Richard Montgomery, not the one who had died, but his son who bore his father's name. Now an adult, he wrote, "Ethan, I grew up hearing about you and Thunder, about how you refused my father's offer. For years I didn't understand. I thought it was foolish. Now a father myself, I understand perfectly. Thank you for teaching me through your example that integrity has no price. I'm raising my children with those values." Ethan tucked the letter away with Gabriel's journals, precious documents that told a story of right choices. The Thunder Equine Therapy Center was now 20 years old, from a boy refusing $5 million to an institution that had transformed thousands of lives. Ethan, at 40, saw the work solid, yet always evolving. New horses arrived, each with unique potential. New therapists trained, carrying the philosophy forward. Emma, now the administrative director, kept everything running. Noah had become a veterinarian, lovingly caring for the animals, the Miller family united by a common purpose. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened," Emma said one day, "if I had taken the money." Ethan looked around, children laughing, horses grazing, therapists working, lives being changed. "We'd be rich," he said, "but we'd be poor." Emma understood perfectly. Thunder's legacy had surpassed all expectations. Centers inspired by him now existed on every continent, not franchises, but places born from the same love and dedication. Ethan occasionally traveled to advise, always carrying the same message. Genuine connection can't be taught in a manual, it's cultivated in the heart. On one such trip to South Africa, he encountered a situation that stayed with him. In a poor township, young people had created an improvised center with rescued horses. "We heard your story," said Terrell, their leader, "how you refused millions because you believed in something greater. It inspired us to try." Seeing the boat, seed planted in Pleasant Creek, bloom on the other side of the world, moved Ethan beyond words. Back in the United States, he found another surprise. Hope had sired a filly, Thunder's granddaughter. The little one, named Victory, already showed signs of the same special lineage. "The story continues," Ethan said, watching the filly play in the pasture where Thunder once grazed. And it did. Every day brought new challenges and miracles. Families arrived broken and left whole. People came without hope and left renewed. Money? The center was now sustainable, even prosperous. But true wealth wasn't counted in dollars. It was counted in Matthew walking, Isabella speaking, Leah smiling, Gabriel growing, Melissa singing. It was counted in every time someone chose purpose over profit, love over convenience, integrity over ease. On a starry night, Ethan climbed the hill where Thunder was buried. The simple headstone read only, "Thunder proved some things are priceless." "We did it, old friend," Ethan said to the wind. "Your mission lives on." And in the quiet of the night, Ethan could have sworn he heard a distant whinny, approving. Because in the end, the $5 million he had refused had become something infinitely greater, a legacy of love that would span generations, reach across continents, and forever prove that the best choices are the ones we make with our hearts. Ethan walked down the hill with light steps. Tomorrow there would be new children to help, new horses to train, new stories to write. And somewhere, perhaps at this very moment, another young person faced a similar choice. Ethan hoped his story would whisper the right answer. Because Thunder had taught the most important lesson. When we choose love over money, we don't become poorer. We become infinitely richer. The end. Now tell us what you thought of the story and where you're watching from. If you have something to share with us, leave a heartfelt comment. Do you think Ethan made the right decision by refusing the $5 million? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like the video and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other inspiring stories.